Hi, I'm Jeff Berlin, and you are watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi, everyone. John Liebman here, founder and first baseman of ForBassPlayersOnly.com, where people learn bass despite sore muscles, creaky bones, and getting older. We have a very, very special guest this week, my old friend, Jeff Berlin, who's got an incredible new album out, a beautiful tribute to Jack Bruce. Hello, Jeff. How are you?
I'm well, John, and thank you very much for inviting me. And indeed, it's my gesture to my great hero, Jack. So yes, indeed, I'm glad I got this one done.
Well, we are definitely going to talk about it. Last time I saw you, I think was in your living room. We did that very fun interview in Nashville. I was down there for the Summer NAMM show with my buddy. Hey, Friedbaum, how you doing? And then we went out and had I think an Italian dinner. But I watched that interview last night, and I said, this is right at the height of the new. You were all excited about the how many anniversary, 30-year anniversary of the Joe Frazier release.
Oh, we had
And
just done a single.
and I told you I remember sitting, I think, on the floor at home or something in like 1982, 83, transcribing Joe Frazier. And oh, let me turn that off. We don't want to hear any of that. And I asked you at the end of the interview, I said, so what's coming up next? And to tell you the truth, I forgot that you said this. You said, I want to start on this Jack Bruce project. And that was all the detail you had. So congratulations on finally getting it out. I listened to it many times, and I'm not surprised that Jack Bruce was an influence of yours, but I had no idea he was as profound an influence as he is. So tell me exactly what inspired this project.
Well, if you go back to it's actually a little ways around the barn. I'll try to tie in all the elements of it. But to begin, you know how some people sort of have a propensity towards something in their lives, that they show a talent or an inkling that they're going to do something that is in their DNA. I always felt that I was always going to play. And when I heard the live Cream off of Wheels of Fire, it galvanized me. Jack simply opened a door for me that I didn't even know existed. And it was so profound a blow that I'm still sometimes feel I resonate from it. It was that meaningful to me. So come through the career I've had, et cetera, I came to this point where after Jack had passed away, I had said that I had wanted to do a record. And it was, very important for me to do a record that was not a fusion record and that was not a record in bass virtuosity. As to be quite honest, and I'm not being, falsely modest, everybody today plays better than I do. And I acknowledge it. I think that there are far more virtuosos than I in this particular period. So what seemed to be left for me was harmony, melody, the way to use the content of the music that I've always sort of tried to share with people, like when they get taught that they ought to look into these things, because that's what opened the door for everybody. It opened the door for Jack to become liberated in music. That's what the Jack project was in part. It's the inspiration I had in music, my own inner voice, that I hear this, because I arranged the record in about 2-3 weeks. It was a fast job, but over the recording of it, I changed and added to it. I don't know if I'm going too long in this, but it was.
Well, no, I mean, this is great. That's what I was looking for. But this is not just a bunch of cover tunes. I mean, that would have been great too. But the project is a whole different kind of scope. And I know I read somewhere you said it was inspired by what Giles Martin did with the music of the Beatles. So talk to me about that.
Well, Giles Martin, we'd never met, but what he did also greatly influenced me. And I went to see Cirque du Soleil, and I think at the time they commissioned Giles to prepare a Beatles track. So he combined several Beatles songs in one track that actually all were in the same key and all in the same tempo. Now, he did some studio manipulation, but I couldn't do that because I wasn't going to extract Cream tracks or Jack Bruce solo tracks. So I arranged it to be that way. Giles' vision opened that door to me. I could combine songs and do things to make arrangements because I felt that would be more interesting to bass players than, let's say, groove or one key bass playing. In that we all groove and we all can play in one or two keys, and it's sort of our general demographic and our general ability. So I wanted to do something that was absolutely new in the perspective of the song, completely and totally new. But it actually came for a reason also other than music. I don't know if I should explain or not.
Go ahead. You open the door.
Okay,
Go ahead.
it's a tentative thing. In the old days when I would criticize bass education, because I stopped, doing that. I haven't changed my ways, but in the old days when I referred to Steve Bailey or Victor Wooten's teaching or Berkeley or do these things, it was very upsetting to people that admired these people and other people. And they had decided, well, Jeff's all talk. And, I've never heard him because I hadn't recorded in a bit. So he's just, whatever, jealous or envious, and he's just talking. And then it occurred to me that they had a point. All these guys that may have been a little bit miffed at me because I didn't see what they saw the way they saw it, that I thought if I made a record in part for them, just inviting people to check it out, they'll get a sense of what I do and maybe get an inkling as to why I had that sort of like outside vision of teaching. If you hear what I do, I'm not a genius. I'm not whatever. I'm a guy that was well taught. And at this later stage in my life, the results can be heard in my in-time bass playing on Jack. The harmony that's on Jack, I have some of the, I feel, if I may, really powerful bass tone on Jack. And it all sort of came about because I was taught originally how to learn well. And I thought that people that may have been angry with me or upset with me for having, let's say, violated that thing by saying what I said, I've stopped doing that. It really upset people, so I've stopped it. But at the same time, they were in my mind, and I said, yeah, they have a reason. Let me make something. Maybe they'll be interested to see it. Maybe it'll inspire them, and maybe they'll decide to do something special in their own musical lives, seeking to be taught in ways that I know will open doors. So that was sort of a part of it for me.
Well, the album is still pretty new. Have you heard back from anybody yet, or is it still too new? Is it too early?
Steve Lukather wrote back. Can I say it? I mean, he was blown away. Alex Lifeson was blown away. Sammy Hagar was flipped out because he's really rocking. This is a rock album.
Well, yeah, that was my next question. When I think of a Jeff Berlin album, I think of Drexler and Richard Drexler and the albums that you put out and your whole lumpy jazz persona and all that. So when people hear the name Jeff Berlin, they don't generally associate that name with Sammy Hagar or Johnny Highland or Bumblefoot. And you've got quite a cast of are they guest artists or whatever you'd call them, a cast of players on there. So that is a bit of a departure for you too, this whole different scope.
Well, it is and it isn't. I've always had an inkling toward rock. And I've always had an inkling towards rock that might be interesting and hopefully not too fusion-esque. I'm not quite fond of the word fusion, nor what it stands for these days. We evolve in the arts. Tomorrow I may love it again, but right now. So I've always loved rock. I came from rock. Cream, Ginger called it a jazz group. It wasn't. It was not a jazz group. It was a very loud, energetic 4/4 band and in an improvisational group. So in that tenet of improvising, yeah, I guess it had a jazz sort of element. They played the head, they soloed, they sang the head, and it was over. Yeah. It's a rock album, and all of the guests, or most of the guests, are rock players. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, you mentioned him. He tore it up. Sammy Hagar tore it up. Geddy Lee tore it up. I wanted guys that loved Jack Bruce, who were friends of mine or good acquaintances of mine. Had Johnny Highland, a country guitarist,
Yes.
who tore it up. Eric Johnson tore it up. I could just go on and on.
I've got it right here. By the way, if I didn't mention, I'm sorry. The album is called Jack Songs. That's the name of the album. And the people on it: Sammy Hagar, Alex Lifeson, Geddy Lee, Greg Bissonette, Gary Husband, Eric Johnson, Bill Frisell, Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Alex, how do you pronounce his name? The Santana singer, Liggert Wood, just like it's spelled. Scott Henderson, Marcus Miller, Ron Carter, Tony Levin, Michael League, Nathan East, Mark King, Bruce Gutrich, Billy Sheehan, and Johnny Highland. Oh my goodness, Jeff.
I was fortunate, and it's it isn't a bass player record, but there's bass players on there that ought to interest bassists. I wanted bass players, as I said before, who may have not been happy with my educational acumen, in part to see that, you could have a background in music and then also play and relate to the greatest rock players who had no background in the type of training. Anyways, these guests lifted the record and they did me honor. I'm not giving lip service. Without them, this record would not sound the way it sounds.
I want to mention one thing. I think I was 10 years old. I went to overnight camp, and some of the older guys with the guitars, and it's the first time I heard, you remember Phil Oakes?
Yes, I do.
Draft Dodger Rag and I Ain't Marching Anymore. So they used to play that stuff. And then this song, what's that? Do that Painted Wagons song. I love that theme from an imaginary Western. That goes way back. I had no idea Jack Bruce wrote that song. I love that song. And it's a beautiful recording on the album.
I appreciated it. I will add, if I may follow up on your thought. I don't like doing covers. I feel people have done covers of Jack and Cream, etc., better than I can. I don't feel it was interesting to do it that way. So mentioning theme, for example, the whole song I think originally might have been in either A or G. I don't recall, but I went from G to A and then back to G and then modulated and wrote little things because it had to be. Every song had to be dramatic. I learned that from Sgt. Pepper. Every song, and as sort of an indirect relationship to Giles Martin there, I had to make every song an epic, a literal epic, that when you heard a song, you would go, oh my God, listen to that, and go to the next song and maybe feel the same. That's why the record took so long, because I needed every song to be its own little universe. And that's what happened on Theme, which is, I feel, Jack's most famous song outside of the Cream repertoire.
Yeah, when I was 14 years old, I saw the Jay Giles Band, and one of the warm-up acts was Mountain with Leslie West.
Did you see them at the Fillmore?
No, this was at Cobo Arena in Detroit, Michigan.
Oh, I see. I saw Mountain at the Fillmore, and I saw Jay Giles at the Fillmore.
God, I loved the Jay Giles Band at that time. And then right around that time, I thought Mark Farner from Grand Funk was the coolest guy in the world.
I saw Grand Funk at the Fillmore. Oh, I was a fan, man. I still am. You think it's these guys on my records? I'm a fan. Oh boy, look who's playing there. Look who's doing this. Yeah. Trust me, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of everybody that plays that has affected me. People that I'm a fan. What can I say? I'm unapologetically a fan. Whippy,
All right. Well, now we're smiling and upbeat. I don't want to touch a nerve, but you kind of
touch a nerve.
Okay. Let's talk some bass stuff. You've got some pretty strong convictions about music education and about bass education that a lot of people just don't get. And you've acknowledged and you've made some remarks, something to the effect of trying to portray a kinder, gentler version of expressing your thoughts and opinions. But why? You may have kind of answered this a little bit a few minutes ago, but why do people get so riled up when they hear you talk about this?
I'll give them a couple of thoughts that I have. One is that we are in a time where there is a great deal of attention paid to political correctness, that anybody that might veer outside of, let's say, the commonality of the common point of regard that everybody functions by is not seen as playing along. I mean, Branford Marsalis addressed this a few years ago when they asked him, like, what do you think of your students? And he said, well, I won't go into what he said. People could look it up online. But he also addressed that if you don't play along with people, they'll beat the shit out of you for it. So where I'm at is, I noticed that in all the vocations, if you take any class, they teach you factually that there wasn't fun, groove, hang, social interaction in learning how to fix an air conditioning, a unit, or in the major colleges where they teach, medicine or law or computer sciences, or anything that I feel that is being taught has not been emphasized that it had to be taught via the condition of fun, rather that it was taught via the condition of excellence. And I feel that I've been looking out more for the people that don't like what I say, because they don't have somebody that champions what I feel is the correct way to learn. I'm not talking about art. I'm talking about learning a bass. And that's why I'm not, people aren't happy with me, because I say things contrary, I guess, to the people that they admire. And I could get into it and I won't, but I can pretty well assure you that there are several sources that do not see music as first and have said so. Now, bass is a musical instrument. It is based in two ways of learning: being self-taught, which interestingly, every teacher that ever taught slap, rock, blues, funk, metal, every teacher is self-taught. So students are paying teachers to teach them what the teacher learned without paying to learn it. So I point this out, saying you could be self-taught and not pay your money to be learning how to play a fretless bass, when people don't pay money to learn the violin, violoncello, bass without written music. So I'm contrary to the whole system, and I guess it upsets people. But until people can show me where I might be wrong, I feel that the only reason some might be upset with me is because I've said it in the first place. It's an unpopular ethic, but I'm looking out for the people, more looking out for them, I feel, and it has always been my intention, for the people that dislike me the most, for trying to point out to them that you are not being taught, in my opinion, correctly, that they ought to love themselves and their musical careers or musical lives more than they love their bass teachers or schools. That's ass backwards to me. You come first, the students come first, the bass players come first. They always have with me, all these things. They are first. I never loved the teacher more than I loved my own wish to become a good musician. And I think bass players may have things backwards. So because I state this unpopular point, people are upset with me, but until, I guess, people show me where I'm making a mistake, I'm really looking out to be one of the small areas of checks and balances, so I could advise, I'm sorry, I'll end this, I know I'm going on, that I could be the correct way to teach people, or have someone that teaches like me, because the way that I do it is proven. It's a product. Bass lessons are a product. It is not a joyful camaraderie. It is a product, just like being taught in every major area of vocation and of even the arts are taught factually. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's
well, but you're talking about you as a teacher. Who are you publishing these instructional bass resources for if you feel so strongly that people should be self-taught? Can you reconcile that for me in my mind?
Yes, I can. The self-taught element is one part of it. The other part is being taught music, academic written music. And if one examines it, they'll notice that there's only two ways that anybody's ever learned. That's every teacher at every music school and everybody that has ever taught. They're either taught being self-taught, or they were taught self-taught as I am, as you are. We were both taught self-taught. We learned our bass. I learned Jack Bruce that way. And the other way is being taught academically. Academically points to the written note. How do you learn English? We either learn it as self-taught people, and the example of that might rest in 1930s Virginia or the Appalachian mountains, where people were not taught how to read and write, and actually suffered from that in their life. That when education went up and reading and writing was added, the quality of life goes up. The quality of music is not based in the academic teaching. Academic teaching teaches us the instrument and how the language of music works. That's it. Once we learn how to read and practice a few minutes a day, it doesn't interfere with listening to, Metallica or whomever, and putting headphones on and being self-taught. The great musicians are either self-taught or they're self-taught and learn written academic music. There's no other way to learn.
Okay. Just the fact, and I thank you again. I've thanked you many times, but for writing the foreword to my bass aerobics book, I guess that must mean I'm on your good list. So I appreciate that. But I have last time anybody counted, I've helped about 130,000 people learn bass, 130,000 bass players. So I try to give them enough to show them what to do and then have them do it on their own. So it's not completely self-taught and it's not completely, taught by somebody else. I think there's a balance there. Would you agree?
I would agree in the self-taught element of it.
I think there's some give and take there because they have to have something to work on. So you present the lesson, then they go home and they do their homework and they learn it. So you're teaching them and they're developing it on their own. And then they come up and they come up with their own stuff and they take it even further. That's the sign of a good teacher, to teach somebody how to function on their own. Am I on the same page as you there?
I think that's the ultimate goal. We want to rise up and become independent based on the stuff that we learn. I never made an emphasis on original bass playing, since that's really not a goal I would seek. I would seek functional bass playing and let originality show up, let's say, if it does or if it doesn't. Most bass players will never be original, and that's not a loss. That doesn't mean anything because originality requires kind of a bit of a sacrifice. And if one doesn't want to go there, at least they can be functional. My objection to bass education is that there is 10,000 approaches and students are okay with it. I'm just that odd bird that isn't okay with it because I don't think it gives the student, like I say, I look out for these guys. I don't think it gives them what they want. And that's I don't know if we'll ever resolve this here on a John Liebman Zoom chat, but it's sort of the way that I learned violin. I think every classical musician learned the same way, just about. There's a method and established thing, and I find that bass education veered from it. And students are okay because they trust teachers, but I don't think teachers are bad people. I just don't know if they have thought this thing through. I'm a violinist for 10 years. That's how come I had this insight.
Got it. All right. I think you've made your point loud and clear. Most of the people that are coming to me to learn bass happen to be men in their 50s, 60s, 70s, sometimes even older. We get a fair bit of women, but that's generally, it's either people who have dabbled in the bass when they were younger, never got very far with it, or they're just taking it up now later in life. Is there anything you have to add to what you've already said, specifically for people in that group?
Sure, you absolutely can improve. There's no doubt about it. There's no sort of slowing down element of it. There's no, you're older, so you'll have more trouble. You'll have the same difficulty that a 20-year-old will have with reading a few notes. The trick is, and it goes back to time, which is to practice out of time, fix mistakes instantly, and don't look for a resolution. It's like doing push-ups and running into a mirror and seeing if anything popped up. So bass education is a long-term thing. If people can do 15 to 30 minutes of reading, of the quality reading and practice, and here's the can I use certain language? One has to permit themselves. One has to allow themselves to sound like bleep. You have to allow yourself to sound bad, to be incapable, to make mistakes, and to play really poorly. If you're okay with that, you're going to get better by dealing with it. A lot of bass players hate the idea that they can't practice, hate the idea to practice where it isn't related to art. I had a guy the other day, and he graduated a school anyway, and he came to me, and the guy was limited, and the reason he was limited is because he tried to perform everything that we were doing. And I said to him, you mustn't perform. You've got to slow down and be factual, functional, make mistakes, fix it. Make a mistake, fix it. And that was his greatest challenge. That's everybody's greatest challenge. Everybody wants to sound good. And here's some hard news. You won't. I won't. You won't. We have to deal with the step by step and allow ourselves to sound bad so that we have a platform to go up from. And that's the way we learn. I always said that I always felt like I could improve anybody because I really believe I know what everybody needs, at least in the basics substance of learning.
You're still playing your court bass?
I am. It's right there.
That's the only bass you own, right?
I own two courts.
Oh, you own two now. Okay.
I have a 24 fret court because I was planning on a classical record, which I didn't start yet. And I wanted the extra frets in case I had to play melodies. There's some Schubert from the Winterreise, some of the lieder that I thought maybe I could reach, trying to kind of imitate a little bit like a Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, trying to do it on.
Boy, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
And, if I may, on Jack, the whole record is recorded with one bass, and the variety of tones is, I guess, maybe you'll say it's pretty interesting. I guess you might see it as interesting, the variety of bass tones.
I remember you were excited about an EBS pedal. Are you still using EBS stuff?
It's by far the best chorus pedal I've ever used, and I'll continue to use it when I play at the EBS. I think it's called multi-chorus. I don't recall the exact name, but that tone is on the record. And live, that pedal makes the amps just howl. It's a remarkable addition to my outboard. Oh, the producer, I want to give a nod to John McCracken. Mm-hmm. Quite frankly, without him, this record never could have come off the way that it did. I'm in great debt to him. He produced one of the greatest sonic records I've ever played on.
It does sound good.
It's a John McCracken thing, the bass tone. I mean, I might suggest it was all created with my approval, but it was all created by John McCracken. I think he's one of the most brilliant producers I've ever had the record ever done, had the pleasure of working with. And after the record is done, I'll tell everybody we are exhausted. I put my life into this record. I mean, we put our lives into 10 tracks. We really did. It's a love. It's a labor of love, but we're exhausted. I can't go near a studio for a couple of months. I just can't think. I'm not writing. I'm just beat.
Well, you deserve it. Take a break. Well, Jeff, it's always so great catching up with you. I think this is the third, fourth, fifth interview since.
It's always a pleasure, John. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Congratulations again on the album. Again, it's called Jack Songs, and we'll put a link here, and you've got to get it. It's incredible. If you like Jack Bruce and you like Jeff Berlin and all those other people, how can you go wrong? Thank you so much. Keep us posted on anything else after you take a well-deserved break. And
I'm taking a well-deserved break. I want to thank everybody for your understanding of my educational acumen, and I know it's a sensitive thing for people, but I really want the best for people, and I hope you'll understand.
Have you ever met Larry David?
No, I haven't.
I just think you two would get along. Well, when you talk about political correctness, you watch that show, Curb Your Enthusiasm. The thing about that show for me is he says things that everybody thinks, but they are afraid to say it. He just says it. And I think maybe you have a little bit of that too.
In this one area, I do.
Okay.
In this one area, I'm afraid I do. I mean no harm, but I do mean for a great deal of rethinking and change. And I hope that people will benefit. That's my only interest. So.
All right. Well, thanks again for sharing and for clearing everything up. And I look forward to seeing you in person once this crazy pandemic gets, we get control of it and things get back to normal. So thank you. Thank you, Jeff Berlin. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman of ForBassPlayersOnly.com, where people are learning bass despite sore muscles, creaky bones, and getting older. We will see you all next week. In the meantime, let's play bass.